In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to install this SSD on an ASUS Tough Gaming H670 Pro Wi-Fi DDR4 motherboard. And this is a 2280 form factor SSD, 1 terabyte, PCIe M.2 NVMe Generation 4, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I would suggest before you install your SSD, but if you've already installed your SSD, that you go ahead and register it on Sabrent's website. And I'm going to show you how to do that. And if you have already put it into your computer, there are two ways that you can get the serial number that you're going to need. You're also going to need the company you ordered it from, the date you ordered it, your order number, and a couple other little details. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. All right, so you're going to go to Sabrent.com and scroll down to the bottom here where you will click on Register a Product. And then you're going to click Register Your Product. And I'm not really sure what this one is for. Yeah, I don't really know what that is about. That's for a return. Okay. All right, so once you've got to this page, you're going to put your name in here and your email here, your model number, which I'll show you. Okay, so your model number should be right here. It'll also be on the case inside in pretty much the same place. Should be, see, same thing. All right, and so you'll fill that in there, and it may or may not find it. When I put in my product number, this one here, it did not find it, so I just typed it in and clicked save. It asked me if I wanted to save that one. And then over here, you're going to type in your serial number. Now, on mine, for some reason, on both the case and the box itself, the serial number is absent. And so I got a little bit frustrated because here I am trying to register my product, and I can't register my product because the serial number is apparently on the device I showed you how to install. Yay! So that would require, theoretically, having to take it out again. And it could be on the bottom side. So I may have to, instead of just taking off the heatsink, I may actually have to remove it entirely so I can see it. But I remembered that Windows offers some options. So what you're going to do is you've already installed it and it's not on here. You're going to go ahead and type in here, system, and then you should be popping up system information. If you don't get in right away, then you can type in info. Now, you're going to go over to components over here and open that up and go down to storage, open that up, click on drives. And then you can see your drive. Here's my drive. Yay. And it shows you your serial number and you're good to go. You just type or copy that information into the serial number space. And then here's where you'll put your date of purchase, where you purchased it from, the country you're in, your order number from that place you bought it from. If you want to, you can put in your phone number. And if you want to, you can include a copy of your receipt. So you can, if you have it in email, you can just do a screenshot of it. If it is a PDF, you can just download it and then upload it via this because it allows images and PDFs only. And then you click submit and it'll give you a message saying that your product is registered unless you entered in something that was incorrect. And that's it. That's all you got to do. And then your warranty will be extended as long as you do this within the first 90 days of your purchase. Okay? Standard warranty is 1 year, but it'll be extended to 2 years, except for some products like mine will be extended to 3, or in my case, 5 years. So hooray, that's something you should try. Now, not all companies do this. I don't believe that Team Group has a registration, but And not all of the other companies have registrations for their products either. But if they say to do it, then make sure you do it. And I've got multiple places where I can put this. However, it didn't come with a heatsink. I didn't order a heatsink. So I'm going to have to install this in one of the locations where there is a heatsink plate already in place. And also the places where I would be able to install it with a heatsink are currently covered by my massive graphics card. So, which is, they're somewhere down there. You can kind of see, maybe. This is the place where I'm going to put it, down in this area here. This is the heatsink plate. And, hold on, let me show you. There's one port. Oh my gosh, that's horrible. Come on, focus, focus. There we go. So there's one port right there, and the other ports are obscured except for the port closest to the CPU, which is right there underneath that plate. So I've already got a 1 terabyte SSD there. So I'm going. This is actually, this plate hides 2 ports. So I'm going to open that up and show you how to put the SSD in there. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is to remove the plate. And there are 2 screws that hold it in place. If I can just get my screwdriver in there. So when you're loosening up the screw, you're going to have to keep on turning it until you hear a clicking sound again and again, like that. That means it's fully released from the, so I guess you could call it socket. And then you can just, if you get it right, you can just lift that plate out. And the plate has 2 points with heat transfer paste on it. One is a smaller form factor. And we've got this larger form factor here. Now the one that I have is going to be the larger one. This is approximately the same size as my SSD. This one would, but I will take a look also at that one, because although it's smaller, it may be the right length for my SSD. So let me just take a look here. Now you do want to, before you get going on this, you're going to want to ground yourself. Okay, so now you should be able to see here is a standoff with a kind of a plastic retainer that you can rotate like this in order to, instead of having to use a screw that you might drop, you can just turn that and it'll hold the card in place as long as you place the card correctly. For this side, there are 2 ports. They're right there. You can see them. This is for the much longer size, I guess, and this, or maybe they're the same. It's kind of hard to tell. But whichever way, this one is the one that has the longer heat transfer paste. So you can, there's a port here and there's a port here. Choose your poison as far as where you're going to plug it in. As long as it's going to fit, you're all good. And so I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate how you can do that now. Okay, so I misspoke earlier. What I'm working with are M.2 ports, not PCIe ports. Now, this is a type of PCIe, but it's specifically called an M.2 port, and there are both of them right there. And that's where you're going to install your SSD. The PCIe are actually like this one here. And it's pretty hard to see from the angle I've got the camera at, but maybe you'll be able to see right over here under, under my hand here. I'm pointing down to it, there is a card port there, and that's for PCIe. So the graphics card itself, this thing is actually installed into a larger PCIe port. There's also a larger PCIe port here. There's a smaller one over here and another smaller one underneath the very large graphics card. And graphics cards are just going to get bigger and bigger, and it's a monstrosity. Believe me, my first graphics card did not even compare in size at all. I mean, it was a single slot deal, and it didn't take up a huge amount of space because they weren't trying to push the boundaries of what was going to keep cool without a fan, or a giant fan anyways. There was a fan, but not a big fan. Okay, so there are 4 M.2 slots. There's the one I showed you over here. There's one that's kind of nestled underneath the graphics card over here. And then there is this one over here and this one over here. This one here and the one that's on the other side of the graphics card can handle SSD cards from the 2242, 2260, 2280, and 22110 types, or that are of those types. Whereas the other two, which would be the one on this side and the one that's hiding underneath the graphics card, cannot handle the 22110, but can handle 2242, 2260, and 2280. And all 4 of these are PCIe 4.0 by 4 mode. It doesn't, although the one that's actually underneath the card, the graphics card, also has SATA modes as well. That's the only one, and I have no use for it because there are so many SATA ports on this motherboard that it's really not even something I need to worry about, because I'm not going to be doing a lot of SATA stuff because they're just not fast enough and more expensive than a hard disk drive. I mean, I got a 6 terabyte disk drive. I got 3 of them for about $100. So, you know, that's, yeah. Anyways, so you can see right here, there is a Q, what do they call it in here? Hold on a second. There's a name they use for that. A Q latch. And it's called a Q latch because it vaguely looks like a Q. And there's this plastic round thing that's on the standoff there that can be rotated to lock the card in place. Now, whichever type of SSD card you have, you may have to move that Q latch, because the Q latch is by default in the 2280 position here and the 2280 position here, and all 4 of them are by default in the 2280 position. So if you have a 2260 or a 2242, then you're going to need to take the Q latch off from, say, for example, from here, and move it to here for 2260 or here to 2242. If you're going to be doing the 22110, you have that option on that one there, which actually has a Q latch already. So I think you can keep that one on there. You won't have to remove it, but I'm not quite sure. It's also possible on this side as well, on the other side of the graphics card. You don't need any screws. Now you'll notice, I don't know if it's easy for you to see, but right here and on the other 2 positions, well, I'm sorry, the number 1 position, not the number 2 position, they have rubber pads, and those rubber pads will support type 1 and type 2 cards. You do not need to remove them in most cases. If you feel like the card is being warped by that in certain cases, you may want to remove it, but if you're doing a single-sided card, you'll actually have to take an additional one that comes in the box for the motherboard and put it in the right position for the single-sided card that you've got. And now I'm not really too sure where it's located, but I think it's just an additional thing that you add on top of the existing rubber pad. You know, according to the diagram here, if You can see that. You can see that they're showing the optional rubber pad. You take off the backing and you stick it onto what looks like a white block, but that white block is in the very position where the black rubber pads are at the M.2 port position with the Q latch right there. And this is an example of how you install it. You slide it in first, and it's to install it, it's probably not a 45-degree angle. It's probably more like a 20 to 30-degree angle. You just slide it in. It should not have to be forced. And if you are trying to force it, then you're doing it wrong. And then once you've got it in position, you hold it down and you turn the Q latch so that it's held in place. So let me just go ahead and demonstrate that for you. But again, don't forget, you may have to relocate the Q latch if you have one of the shorter cards. And you may have to use an extra rubber pad if you have a single-sided card. The existing rubber pads support double-sided cards. So, I'm grounded. Let's go ahead and get this done so I can have dinner. All right, so there we go. Now pay attention to this slot inside of the port. There is a tab that matches that slot. If you think that it's supposed to go like this, it doesn't go like that. Do not put it in upside down. You're going to break it. Just don't do that, okay? So you're going to just slide it in just like that, very easily. And you're going to hold it down, turn that Q latch, and it is now firmly in place. And once you've done with that, all you got to do now is get your heatsink plate and install that. Okay, so for the heatsink plate, since I've got it installed on this side because I want to reserve that side just in case I ever get a 22110 card, because I already used the 22110 possibility that's next to the CPU. So this is the only other place where I can put a 22110. I don't know how common they are, or if they're still used even, or and I also don't know about the other two sizes, but I'm going to keep that in reserve. Now, again, we're going to use this one because it's in the smaller port position, and we have to remove this plastic. If you don't remove the plastic, the ability of the heat paste underneath it to transfer the heat from your SSD to the plate is going to be severely inhibited, and it might end up ruining it. So you're going to want to carefully remove that. And it is not exactly the easiest thing to do, but you can see the difference right there. No satisfying noises, no ASMR crap. Oh, by the way, in the instructions, it claims you need to remove these screws from the plate and then pick the plate up. I totally disagree with this because the screws are actually designed to stay in the plate. Most of the screw shaft does not have a thread. I don't know if you can really see that or not, but most of the shaft doesn't have threads. It's only the very tip here from about that point on that has threads. Why am I not focusing? It's so irritating. Anyways, so these are actually designed to stay in the plate. They can be removed, but as you can see, they're perfectly fine being where they are. So then what you're going to want to do is you're going to carefully want to position this. And this gets a little bit tricky over the places where it gets screwed in. And I find that, you know, the Q latch thing is wonderful. And this experience, what I'm trying to do right now, is not wonderful. But eventually, you will get it in place, and then you'll be happy because it's frustrating. So let's see if I can get this in place without too much trouble. I doubt it. It wasn't easy the other time. I doubt it'll be easy this time. But maybe I got lucky. Now, don't tighten it all the way. Let's just make sure I got it. Yep, I got it. Make sure you tighten down the other side a bit before you fully tighten both sides. I think I got that too. Nope, I missed it. Yeah, this is the joy of putting these plates in. I hope they will come up with a better design so that it doesn't become such a painstakingly annoying process. And I think I got it now. Yep, I got it. So that is pretty much it. How to install an SSD on the ASUS TUF Gaming H670 Pro. And pretty much any other motherboard that comes with a heatsink plate like this. You can follow the same procedures. If you don't have a heatsink plate on your port, right there. If you don't have a heatsink plate on your port, oh dear, I've got you upside down. Ah, there you are. Then you're definitely going to want to make sure that if the SSD you buy doesn't come with a heatsink, that you order a separate heatsink to attach to it. Make sure it matches the size. So if you buy a 2280 type, you need to make sure that the heatsink is for a 2280 type. Otherwise, I mean, theoretically, I suppose you could buy like a 22110 for a 2280 and put it on top, but it might, depend. I mean, it could be very problematic. So just stick with the right size for the type of SSD that you've got. Okay, so once you've got it physically installed and you've started up your computer, you're not done because the device is not yet formatted. Now, when I got this, I foolishly assumed that the Acronis software that it mentions here was going to be installed on the SSD, but it turns out that's not the case. You have to download it, which I should have realized because when I had the one from PNY, which I don't recommend buying PNY, because they and Kingston and one other company that ADATA have been caught doing a switcheroo on their SSDs using inferior. Once they get it released and it's famous as a good product, they then will use cheaper components to save money and not tell customers and not change the specs on the product. So, PNY, when I got that one, they also had to I had to download it from the website. So I wanted to show you what you do after you get your computer started up. Now, you may have to make some changes in BIOS, but since BIOS varies from one computer to another, it's really kind of hard to show that to you. But just make sure, number one, that your rapid storage technology is not affecting it. So if you look in your BIOS and you see that it shows that the Sabrent Rocket is, or your SSD, whatever it is listed as being, you know what? I'm going to show you. Okay, so when you restart your computer or start your computer, either press F2 or delete so that you go into BIOS. And this is what you'll see on the ASUS H670. Now, if you have managed to turn on rapid storage technology somehow, you'll then, once it's set to on, instead of saying NVMe here, it'll say RAID. And once it says RAID, that becomes a problem in accessing your drive. So say, for example, if you use your SSD as your primary boot device and you've got RAID turned on, you will not be able to use it as a boot device. You will not be able to install Windows to it. It's very irritating. When I first started using this, I didn't know that because, like I said, I've not used SSDs before. But the way this particular motherboard in BIOS works is when Intel Rapid Storage Technology is turned on, and I don't know if this is normal for RST, it assigns your drives to RAID. I don't know which drive becomes the actual boot drive, but this drive here, the one at 2.1 here, my T-Create drive, that one actually showed up as RAID. It didn't show up under HCI, and it didn't show up here in the boot management section, and I couldn't access it until I finally realized that I had to turn this off. And the annoying part of it is since I didn't know what to do, and there wasn't documentation about this in the manual for the motherboard, I contacted ASUS. And I tried talking to a guy in chat, and it was just useless talking to him in chat because he was overwhelmed by the number of people and he couldn't focus on what I was asking him. And he kept on asking the same questions again and asking questions about, for things that I had already given him. And I just finally gave up, and I called them, and the guy just kind of, he asked me a few questions, then he blew me off to email, and then he sent me some instructions, and the instructions weren't useful. And finally I figured it out myself. All the things that I had done, this was one of the things I hadn't tried turning off, because I had turned it on because I was thinking, yes, I want my storage to be faster. Well, it's not about faster. It's about RAID. Now, RAID is used to to make backups, basically. That's an oversimplification. I don't want to get into details on it, but make sure that if you have rapid storage technology from Intel on your device, that you turn it off. Because then both of your devices will show up in NVMe. Now, you may have to go into some of the more advanced settings. You need to go into advanced mode or click on that or use F7. And then you may have to go into advanced here and check some of the settings. Like this should be set up this way. And then I don't really like the menu on here. It's very finicky about where you can click. That's not it. All right, so you may have to come down here and check and make sure that this is set to auto and this is set to auto. And keep in mind that if you buy an SSD that has an older generation on it, it's going to be slower. It'll still run. And if you buy an SSD that's a faster generation than what this motherboard can support, it'll downgrade it to generation 4. So you need to go into there and make sure of that. And I believe there's one other thing. Now you'll notice if you go in here and you haven't made sure that rapid storage technology is turned off, you will not. You will still see this in here, but you won't see it in other places. I mean the drive that you installed. So just go through your settings, and you can come in here and you can do a self-test. If you're concerned that there's something wrong with the device, you can run a test. I've already tested it and made sure it works, and it does, which is great. That means I didn't short it when I was showing you how to install it. And then once you're all done with that, you're going to want to click on Exit and then Save Changes and Reset. Come on. See, it's being fussy. Boy, I didn't realize. From my angle, I can't see all the dust on the screen, but from the angle of this camera, there's a lot of dust on my screen. Well, that just goes to show that your perception is affected by the way you look at things. Okay, so once you... come on. My computer's pretty fast. It's a whole lot faster than my old computer. I used to, oops, I didn't get it all in there, right? I used to feel that, best thing to do to make my computer faster is to get more memory. And that definitely makes a big difference. I mean, I went on my old laptop, I went from 8 gigabytes to, I think it was 32 gigabytes, and things stopped crashing. It was nice because 8 gigabytes is not enough for modern Windows. All right, so once you've got this Windows started up, you're going to go into the Start menu and you're going to, in wherever your search is, depending on which version of Windows you're using, type in disk management. And it may come up with disk management. It may say create and format hard disk partitions. You're going to click on that, and I've already done it, so it's not showing it to you, but it's going to say that there is a device, right? It'll probably appear right up in here that there's a device that has to be formatted before it can be used, something to that effect. You'll want to allow it to do that. And unless you're using an old operating system from Windows or another company, then you're going to want to select GUID as the operating system. Otherwise, if you've got something old like Windows XP, then you'll want to select MBR, which is Master Boot Record. So once you have done that, it'll bring up this list. You will not see the one that I have on here, my Sabrent. You will not see that in the list. And so you'll be like, well, I formatted it, didn't I? Where is it? Well, it's not actually ready. It's formatted, yes, but you haven't partitioned it and you haven't formatted the partition. So you have to scroll down over here. And for some reason, it will not allow my scroll wheel to do the scrolling. So I'm going to scroll down and you'll see there it is right there. Now, again, it's not going to show what I have right here. I have SAB. It's going to just have some other name here, disk 2. It'll be blank and it'll say unassigned over here. So you're going to want to, darn it, I wish I hadn't done this already. Let me just see if I can just show you. All right, so I'm sorry, not unassigned, unallocated. I don't know if you can see that very well. Let me see if I can zoom in on that for you. There we go. So it will show unallocated, and what you're going to do is you're going to right click and then you're going to select. Now, so when you are done, as you can see, when you're done with that initial prompt to format it, you're going to see that it's not up here listed, and you're going to have to scroll down to disk, whatever. It may not be disk 2. It depends on how many drives you have in your computer. I happen to have 3 drives in my computer now, including the new one. So you're going to want to go down to the one that hasn't been allocated, and whatever disk number it is, and make sure you don't choose the wrong one. If it's got allocations, if it's got partitions, like my C drive has 1, 2, 3 partitions on it for whatever. This is for the recovery partition. This is the main drive, and then this is the system partition for EFI. So you want to make sure to select the right one, because if, for example, you decide, oh, I'm going to do this one, then you will lose you will have a problem with your system. So, and you also notice that these are all blue, and those are blue. And the one that's not blue is this one, and that's an indication that that's the one you're looking for. And you're going to right click and select New Simple Volume, and it'll bring up the wizard. And you're going to, unless you're planning to break it up into pieces, which some people want to do because they may want to have part of the drive be like a Linux or Unix boot drive, or you may want to have different partitions for different types of data. And that's all up to you. I'm only going to do just one partition with all of the information. Keep in mind that you don't get the full 1 terabyte, because part of the space that you're getting is being used for the, shall we say, the catalog, which is the GUID, the boot record, and the catalog or list of file locations and stuff like that, and their names. So you can assign a drive letter. I'm just going to leave this as is. Or you can mount it in an NTFS folder, or don't assign a drive letter or drive path. I would just suggest going with what it suggests to you. And the file system will be NTFS, because unless you're using an old system, I forgot the name for the old system. Oh yeah, FAT or exFAT. So FAT would be like pre-Windows 7. I think it is, and then although maybe it was Windows XP, and then NTFS would be Windows 7 and above, I believe. Been a long time, so not really sure anymore. And you can change the allocation size, which is the size of each unit that is saved onto the device, to whatever you feel is going to be best. I don't actually know what the best is, so I don't mess with that. I'll just name it, and you're going to leave it perform a quick format. Now, if this is a drive where you are planning to just use it for data storage, then you want to enable file and folder compression. If you do this, as far as I know, programs are not going to run off this drive. So you can always change it later without reformatting. I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to leave it alone, and now it's done. Now, you're thinking to yourself, oh, great, okay. So here it is, and I'm going to open a folder, and as you can see, there it is right there, and there's nothing in it. It's completely empty, which is as it should be. All right, so now you think you're done, and you are, except for two things. And I'm going to pull up my browser here. So, oh dear. Okay, so in the manual, it talks about the Sabrent sector size converter for cloning existing SSDs and hard disk drives. And I think this must have been for something older, because I actually tried to get this program. I typed in the address they've given here, sabrent.com/download/sb-rocket, and it says, show you, page not found. Well, that's interesting. So I thought, well, maybe they moved it, and of course this can't be updated, so maybe it's somewhere else. So I searched, and the first time I searched, all I found were their SSDs. So I tried again, and I found nothing. So apparently, so it's gone. They no longer provide it, and that's probably because they have here, I'm going to zoom out again. It's probably because they now offer Acronis. So, since there is no more Sabrent sector converter, I went to, I also looked in downloads. The only thing you're going to find in downloads is, well, come on. Well, that's weird. It was working before. Anyways, when you go to downloads, it's going to show you the manuals and stuff. So it's not, there we go. That took an awfully long time. There's no way to sort other than this stuff here. And as far as I could see, if you want to run through all 23 pages and try to find if there's like software in here or anything like that, feel free to do so. I didn't feel like it was worth it. Here's the manual. Oh, here it is. I finally found it. And now you have to figure out, well, which one do I download? And for me, that would be this one here. So, oops. Why did it do that? That's weird. Okay. All right, so I'm going to download it. And then to get your free Acronis, you're going to go to, as you can see right here, you're going to go to sabrent.com/Acronis. And it's a $30 value. Woo! Everybody likes free, right? Well, these days, everything that you think is free is not. You're either paying for it with your personal data or advertising, or people are stealing things from you other than your data or including your data. So what is Acronis True Image? And of course, I want it to be in English, which doesn't change anything. But if you click on these, it's going to change it. Too bad they don't offer more languages, but it is what it is, right? So when you are ready, and you can also learn how to clone your OS to a new Rocket NVMe. They have all this information for you. That's pretty cool. All right. So once you've got that done, if you've finished researching, click on download. And it is now downloading. And so you're all ready to rock and roll. You can use this to clone your drive. I'm going to wait until this is done downloading so I can show to you what you're going to get, because I don't actually know. Now, don't forget, in the manual, if you're going to use the Sabrent sector converter, it does give you instructions on how to use that. So, the instructions are also there as well as online. All right, we're just about done here, which is great, because I want to show you this. All right, there we go. Click on it, either in the downloads folder or on the browser like that, and give it permission, assuming you trust it, and it'll unpack it. And then you're going to click on install. It's very straightforward, as is usual with this sort of thing. Although I have seen some packages and it's like, wow, this is very, very confusing. But most things are very easy when it comes to installs. And as you can see, even with my super fast system, it is taking a minute to install. Of course, I am kind of running out of space on my main boot drive. And the device can... All right, we're going to participate. You don't have to participate, but you have to do this. It's up to you whether you want to participate in the Acronis Customer Experience Program. I don't know exactly what that entails. But we'll find out. Okay, so they're going to keep track of host RAM size, hard disk info, sound device, USB device, printer, CPU, OS, and running processes. And there may be other information that they will keep. And it reports. Wow, okay. So it doesn't state who they're going. Oh, it does state who they're going to share it with. Apparently, it would be to Acronis and companies that they hire to do certain kinds of work. It doesn't look like they're going to sell it to other companies. Now, do keep in mind that if it's the U.S., Canada, Australia, Great Britain, and a few other countries in Europe, New Zealand as well, that's part of the eyes intelligence sharing. So they're going to be they may be required to share this information with the government that the data is stored in, or for the country the data is stored in. If you have it set up in Russia, the same thing's going to happen. They have the potential to watch your data. And also in China has the legal right to look at all data. So if you're a TikToker, yeah, the Chinese government can take a look at all your data and collect information about you, which may or may not be a good thing. Anyways, so that's that. And I don't know what this is. A driver cannot load on this device. Acronis Backup Archive Explorer. A security setting is preventing this driver from loading. That's weird. Select it. Okay. No, I don't want that. I want... Okay. Not sure how I feel about that. I'm going to skip that for right now. And I'm going to click OK. And here's what you can back up your drive from whichever to whichever. So if I want to, I can do the entire PC. I can do disks and partitions, but I have to buy to get files and folders and NAS. Protection protects against third-party processes that encrypt your files or try to use your CPU for mining cryptocurrency. And anti-ransomware protection was turned on. Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of cool. Additional protection on top of the protection I've already got. Protecting from ransomware, illicit crypto mining, and Zoom injection attacks. Because, Zoom has become so terribly popular, and yet from before it became a big thing, from the very beginning, it's never been a very secure platform for teleconferencing, and yet it was the go-to solution for schools and businesses and psychologists and everything, without consideration for the fact that it was not secure. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, you can recover data. All right, so some of the tools that you do have available for free: cloning, rescue media builder, adding a new disk, and Cronus drive cleanser. Cronus Secure Zone is not free. Try and decide is what? Try and decide is not free. That's weird. Try and decide is to help you decide whether you want to have the full version or not. So I guess this is like put in your credit card information, and if you decide you like it, we'll automatically charge you, and if not, well, then you won't be charged, I guess. And then there's the universal restore. Okay, so all tools, and that just takes you there. And then you can, all right. So that's pretty much it. It is kind of useful, and I do highly recommend. I have been using computers for a long time, and it doesn't matter whether you've got a hard drive, which are very, very slow compared to SSDs, and you should not use a hard drive as your main drive for booting and running your Windows, because it's so slow. It doesn't matter whether it's IDE or PATA or SATA or whatever it is, it's slow. The technology is, well, I would say in terms of durability, okay? And this is just my opinion. I'm not basing this on data or statistics or of any kind. A hard disk drive, which is a physically moving drive, it has platters and it has arms that go over the platters and read data. This is a device that's fairly well protected. It's fairly stable. Pressing, if you are in a fix and you need to press the on-off button to make your computer shut down, or you have to press the reset button, the hard disk drive is probably not going to have a hiccup. Now with the SSDs, not so much the same thing. SSDs may not necessarily last as long as a hard disk drive. Now, you can wear out a hard disk drive if you're doing lots of reads and writes. It'll make it go bad faster. For the average user, not a big deal. The same thing, however, is true with an SSD. And depending on which SSD you buy, you may get one that is inclined to going bad sooner. Now, will the company replace it if it goes bad sooner? Well, may or may not. I won't get into that, actually. But an SSD, when you buy it, make sure you check out how many writes to that drive before it's going to become unstable. Because if it's a low number, like I would say, I wouldn't even look at anything under 1,500 reads and writes. But what I've noticed is on occasions when I have had to use the reset button or I've had to use the on-off button, when I start up my computer again, it's complaining that Windows is damaged and it has to auto repair it. And I'm glad that Windows can auto repair. I mean, back in the day when I first started using Windows 95, let alone 3.1, you were like, oh no! And then you had to pull out your installation disk and you had to reinstall Windows on top of itself to fix the problem. And it got better as time passed, but still it was a pain in the butt in the early days. Windows 95, 98, ME, even XP. When files got corrupted, the best thing to do was to just install on top of itself. But I'm digressing. So the SSDs are more sensitive because they're solid state, which is what the SS means. They're more susceptible to damage by electrical interference. So you have to keep that in mind. But they are hugely faster. I mean, if you were to take the time to look at the statistics for how fast the fastest hard drive for consumers is, in terms of transfer rates, in terms of reads and writes, and stuff, versus SSDs, and you could take the slowest SSD, you'd find that it's like, it's just like so much difference. And so if you have your hard drive being used as your boot drive, I have a hard drive in my computer right now. You saw that if you were paying attention, but it is a backup drive. I just use it to store data, because I've got to put my backups of my videos somewhere. So it's not my primary drive, and it doesn't slow my system down. But if you put it as your primary drive, as your boot drive, it is going to slow your speed down. Remember this rule, that your system is only as fast as the slowest component, the slowest. And the hard disk drive with modern computers is definitely the slowest part, that is, or component. So it will slow everything down every time you have to do a read or a write. Now, keep in mind, there's something called virtual memory. Virtual memory is memory that is actually on your hard drive or your SSD. Yeah, so when the computer doesn't have enough memory to do what you need it to do, it relies on your storage drives to provide extra memory. And that means that, number one, you have less space available on your storage device, but number two, since everything's going through that storage device in order to be processed or saved or whatever, that means that device, if it's slow, is going to slow down your system every time it's accessed. So you can have a huge, going from my old laptop, which admittedly was a 10-year or so old laptop, to this was just such a it was a wonderful experience, because it went from just this kind of annoyingly slow speed to things are going. And that's because I've got a lot of memory and I've got a new processor, but more importantly, I've got an SSD that's really fast. So I would definitely make sure that you're running your computer with an SSD. But, and this is the point I've been trying to get to, I'm sorry it takes me so long to do that. I get distracted. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit old now. It is very important, and I've had this happen to me a few times in my life, that you back up your data, because sooner or later your hard disk or your SSD is going to die. It could die because it's time, it's old. It could die because of a power surge. It could die because of other reasons, but it's going to die. And if you haven't backed up your data to another device, it could be a flash disk, it could be an external drive, it could be an internal backup drive, it could be a tape drive, whatever it is, put it on DVDs. If you haven't backed it up, you've lost that data probably forever. Now, if you've got money, you can take that computer or that device to a professional, and they can restore some, if not all, of that data. But here's the problem. You have to have money, because usually those people do not charge a small amount, even if you're just a regular guy like me. Like, I had bought a PNY drive that failed on me months after I got it. And then that admittedly is probably because it wasn't actually intended for a computer as old as mine, and there was a warning message saying, hey, this is not entirely compatible. Do you still want to do this? And I did, and I lost months of data. I lost photographs. I lost work on some video games that my son and I were trying to create. I mean, a lot of work. It was very, very discouraging. And I've lost even more than that in the past. So when I lost that data off that PNY SSD, and again, keep in mind, this was because of probably because of an incompatibility, not because I had done so much usage of it. I wasn't doing a lot of usage, that it died, and all the data was there, but I think the controller for it was damaged. So I contacted a company, and they said, yeah, at least $750. I was like, oh my God, well, I can't do that. Yeah, I was at that point in time, I was unemployed, and it was just really, really bummed me out. PNY did replace the drive, and I did use it as a backup drive after that, but never installed it. I didn't install it again into my laptop, and it's already full. Nice thing about the solid state drives is if you bump them, they're not, it's not going to cause damage like if you bump your computer with a hard disk drive in it. But yeah, that's something that you need to understand. So sorry about going on and on and on. I hope that you have full understanding now of how to install the SSD and get it up and running on your computer, and you understand about the difference, why an SSD is better than an HDD. And please remember, if you're going to choose between a SATA SSD and a PCIe or M.2 SSD, you're definitely going to want to go for the M.2 as your first choice, PCIe as your second choice, SATA would be your third choice. Okay? Thanks for watching, and hope you have a great day.